Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
We can't see you, however, Sheba.
Adriana, ciao, bine ai venit!
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, which is part of the monthly-long initiative of Caritas Internationalis on Caritas Celebrates Women. This webinar is the second one of 4 webinars that highlight the concept of women as builders of dialogue, builders of hope, builders of solidarity, and builders of future. In this worldwide challenging context, we are trying to highlight the importance of promoting equality, leadership, and participation of women by working together for a better world, for a different world, for a world where we want inclusion, participation, and equality. The aim of this webinar is to have voices from the Confederation and from the OLEC, from other different contexts, in order to see and to reflect together how the participation and the leadership of women can bring an added value to our society. And in the first webinar that has been organized in cooperation with the British Embassy to the Holy See on the 8th of March, we insist on the concept of women as builders of dialogue, with testimonies and voices from our Confederation, from Latin America, from Middle East, and also from Europe and Africa. And now, today, we will focus on women as builder of hope, the importance of the culture of the encounter, with a specific focus on migration and on the role of women as key pillars of the society in welcoming and accompanying migrants. And there will be a specific focus on the Ukrainian crisis. In all these webinars, this one and the following one, we will have voices from women and men to witness how it is important, despite the challenges that women have to face, the role of women in each community and in the society. There will be other 2 webinars each Tuesday, next Tuesday on the 22nd and then on the 29th of March. The next one will be focused on women as builders of solidarity, and it will be focused on caring for the poor and caring for our common home. And on the 29th, we will close this series of webinars with the theme Women as Builders of Future. Now I would just wish you a fruitful webinar. I thank you all the contributions coming from the Confederation, And a special thanks to the speakers today that will be announced by the facilitator and the moderator of this webinar from Bangladesh, from United States, and from Ukraine and Poland and Romania. Thank you very much. There will be also an introduction from the co-chair of the Women's Committee of Caritas Internationalis, and a specific focus on the Ukrainian crisis introduced by the Secretary General of Caritas Europa, Maria Niemann. Thank you all, and I will give the floor to Jean Bale, the Regional Coordinator for North America, to moderate this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moira. So we would like to begin today. We have a very full agenda, but we'd like to begin with prayer. This prayer is from the voices of women. So let's pause to remember that we're always in God's presence. Dear Lord, you walk beside us each moment of each day. You know us by name, see each joy and sorrow. You create within us a gentle capacity to love and nurture. You give us understanding and patience in a troubled world. You lay upon us the responsibility to carry and care for new life. You release us to dance and run, to sing and create. You craft in us sharp minds that are able to solve problems and see possibilities. You desire each of us to live life to the full, embracing your love for us and extending grace to others. You gave your life so that we could walk free to build your kingdom on earth as in heaven. We lay our lives before you and trust in your unfailing love. Guide us, heal us, touch us and lead us to reflect more and more of your life within our own. Our Lady, Queen of Peace, pray for us. Before we get started with our speakers, I'd just like to invite you all to, first of all, choose a language in the interpreter box so that you can understand everything that's being said in the language of your choice. And then take note of the chat box. We'll be using that to collect your questions. And you might also want to just give comments on what the speakers are saying. We'd like this presentation, this event, to be more of a dialogue than to just be presentations. So please feel free to use the chat box throughout. So now I would like to introduce Patricia, Adele, Felicity, the co-chair of the Women's Committee and Secretary General of Caritas Maurice. Patrice.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci Jane pour l'introduction. Alors bonjour, bon après-midi, bonsoir à tous et à toutes. En ce mois de mars 2022, Caritas célèbre les femmes. Marcher ensemble pour l'égalité, la rencontre et le renouveau, c'est à quoi cette initiative d'un mois nous invite pour accroître la visibilité et la voix des femmes afin d'établir un dialogue sur la promotion du leadership, de l'égalité et de la participation des femmes dans la Confédération et dans la société. Cette initiative est dans la continuité de celle que nous avons réussi d'organiser en 2021. Et elle s'inspire également du rôle clé joué par les femmes pendant la pandémie du COVID-19. Cette initiative soulignera la présence et la contribution significative des femmes à la Confédération Caritas. Elle identifiera les besoins clés et entamera un processus de marcher ensemble pour témoigner pour dialoguer et prendre des mesures pour renforcer et enrichir la Confédération par une plus grande participation des femmes à tous les niveaux. Comme vous le savez déjà, l'un des points stratégiques de la Confédération, c'est promouvoir le leadership et la participation des femmes. Cette initiative suit les domaines d'action que nous nous sommes donnés, c'est-à-dire analyse de la situation actuelle des femmes de la Confédération, promouvoir l'égalité des chances et éliminer les obstacles qui empêchent la promotion des femmes, et aussi rendre visible et communiquer sur l'action des femmes de la Confédération. Grâce à cette initiative, Caritas vise premièrement à faire entendre la voix des femmes qui sont et ont été significativement présentes dans la Confédération et bien sûr dans les communautés à travers le monde. En proposant des témoignages et des expériences sur le rôle des femmes en tant que bâtisseurs de dialogue et de solidarité et d'espoir. L'initiative vise aussi à faire connaître et reconnaître leur contribution à la Confédération et aux communautés, les défis et les obstacles qu'elles doivent surmonter et la résilience dont elles font preuve dans différents contextes. Grâce à cette initiative, Caritas vise à appeler la Confédération et les autres parties prenantes à agir pour promouvoir la participation, l'égalité et la participation des femmes. Ce que nous attendons comme résultat grâce à ces séminaires, à ces webinaires, c'est que la Confédération sera animée pour engager le dialogue sur le sujet du leadership, de l'égalité et de la participation des femmes pendant le mois de l'initiative. Et qu'à la suite de la participation à ces séries de webinaires, aussi à la suite des enquêtes qu'on est en train de faire sur la participation des femmes dans la Confédération, et bien sûr, on veut aussi toucher plus les médias sociaux. Nous souhaitons accroître la sensibilisation et la mobilisation de la Confédération à tous les niveaux pour promouvoir le leadership et la participation des femmes de manière concrète, pas seulement parole. Nous souhaitons que la Confédération sera animée et mobilisée pour poursuivre ce dialogue au niveau local, national et régional par le biais d'initiatives et de programmes futurs. Nous voulons aussi voir une plus grande visibilité des rôles que les femmes jouent actuellement à tous les niveaux de la Confédération. Nous souhaitons qu'une voix plus forte sera donnée aux femmes à tous les niveaux de la Confédération. On souhaite l'inclusion de la voix des hommes afin de construire le dialogue. Et enfin, nous travaillons pour la sensibilisation et aux responsables de la Confédération et de l'Église à la nécessité de promouvoir davantage la participation des femmes à la direction et à la prise de décision. Dans le cadre de cette initiative du mois de mars 2022, Caritas célèbre les femmes. Comme Moira vous l'a dit, ce deuxième webinaire a pour thème « Les femmes bâtisseuses d'espoir, accueillir et accompagner les migrants ». Elle sera axée sur le témoignage, le dialogue et la rencontre avec les expériences des femmes migrantes et de ceux qui travaillent avec elles. Ce webinaire mettra particulièrement l'accent sur l'expérience de celles qui fuient le conflit actuel en Ukraine et sur ce que d'autres expériences de situation d'exemple pour les migrants et les réfugiés peuvent nous apprendre sur le rôle porteur d'espérance que les femmes peuvent jouer pendant une telle crise. Le comité de femmes de Caritas internationaliste veut faire connaître ces expériences qui nous met au défi de voir comment les femmes ont un rôle important en tant que témoins de la solidarité et bâtisseurs d'espoir. Malgré leur vulnérabilité, il est clairement démontré que les femmes sont aussi des piliers dans les communautés pour accueillir et accompagner les migrants et les soutenir dans l'accès aux services de base et autres besoins essentiels. Le 8 mars 2015, journée de la femme, le pape avait terminé son angélus par un salut à toutes les femmes qui chaque jour essayent de construire une société plus humaine et accueillante. Le Saint-Père voit dans cette journée l'occasion de confirmer l'importance des femmes et la nécessité de leur présence dans la vie et dans la société. Les femmes non seulement donnent la vie, mais elles nous transmettent la capacité de voir au-delà, affirme le pape au balcon de la place Saint-Pierre. Elle nous transmet cette capacité de comprendre le monde avec des yeux différents, d'entendre, de voir des choses avec un cœur plus créatif, plus patient, plus tendre. Un monde où les femmes sont marginalisées est un monde stérile, nous dit le pape. Pendant ce temps que nous allons passer ensemble, allons écouter, découvrir ce que nos collègues à travers le monde, de l'Europe de l'Est à l'Europe centrale, de l'Asie à l'Amérique du Nord, ils ont à nous dire sur la réalité des femmes qu'ils côtoient tous les jours. Bonne session ensemble.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adele, Felicity, Patricia. We are happy to have heard the foundation and the framework for this webinar series and for the work of the committee that is working so hard to help women reach new levels of participation and leadership. So now we're going to hear from Maria Nyman. Maria is the General Secretary for Caritas Europa. Maria?
Thank you so much, Jean. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining at this webinar in this moment of time where our world is in such great need of hope and witnessing. In our European region, we are in the midst of the war in Ukraine, which we watch with horror and with sadness, and which impacts on the whole region and its consequences indeed on the whole world. And we don't know yet how the situation will unfold. We pray for peace. And as Caritas, being Love in Action, we provide assistance in Ukraine, in the neighboring countries and beyond, to support the immediate needs of the people fleeing the war and those stuck in the conflict-struck areas. Caritas tries to do what we can to provide relief, immediate relief, but also longer-term welcome and inclusion of migrants. And we promote a culture of encounter, and I'm so proud to be part of this network, where in the midst of the most difficult and inhuman situations, the human dignity is really respected and upheld. And I carry with me what Tatjana Stavnici, so that's the president of Caritas Ukraine, what she stated in a recent webinar. As Caritas, we carry with us a deep truth, the truth of the human dignity. Women and children are often the worst affected by conflict, and we know that women face particular risks and vulnerability. And this will be the same also for those facing the war and fleeing the war in Ukraine. At the same time, we also know that women are central in the fight for peace and are integral to all our work. We also know that supporting women's roles and perspectives is really essential to build better communities and more resilient societies. As Caritas Internationalis, we have made a commitment to promote women's inclusion and to promote women's leadership roles. And I believe that this is really now more important than ever to ensure that the voices of women are brought in at all levels in the process of peace building. Now, women are also at the forefront of welcoming the migrants and to support the many women and men and children arriving. And we know that Caritas in Ukraine and also in the neighboring countries are doing really a remarkable work, really quite exceptional now to support the migrant women, the men, the girls, and the boys. And I think that by doing this, Caritas is really builders of hope. When I started my work at Caritas, that was almost 3 years ago, I visited Ukraine for the first time. And one of the Caritas beneficiaries there, who was a severely disabled man who was depending on Caritas support for all the basic needs, he said to me, "Thanks to Caritas, I feel hope for tomorrow." That was a man in Lviv saying that, and I pray he stays safe. And I've been carrying with me that sentence ever since I started, because I believe it's the center of our mission. We shall help our brothers and sisters in need to keep the flame of hope burning in their hearts, to show that hope is real, that love is possible, in the midst also of the darkest moments of despair. Thanks to Caritas, I feel hope for tomorrow, he said. I wanted to flag a specific issue linked to the arrival of women who flee the war, and that's severe risks linked to trafficking and abuse. And safeguarding against abuse and fighting trafficking and exploitation, that's also key priority areas for Caritas in our actions to safeguard the dignity of every human being. We need to be addressing the specific needs and specific risks that women are facing. We need to do that through awareness raising to the women fleeing, awareness raising and information to the service providers, to the general population. And we need to have the proper mechanisms in place to mitigate the risks and to take clear action when a person is at risk or a victim of abuse or exploitation. So I'll stop there and thanking Caritas Internationalis for organizing this webinar. And I think now it's time to give space to witness, dialogue, and encounter with the experiences of the women migrants and those who work with them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. And thanks to all of our colleagues at Caritas Europa and the Caritas throughout Europe for taking the lead on responding to this conflict. Thanks too for bringing up that important concept of safeguarding, which is so important in conflict time. Before we move to our next panel, I believe we have a video to show.
Hi everybody, my name is Sodarka. I'm Caritas Ukraine Communication Manager. Thanks God, I got a chance to come from Kyiv to Lviv, and I and my kids are in conditionally safe place because just half hour ago was an air raid siren again. Ukrainian cities are ruined by shelling. Thousands of people have to leave their home because of Russian aggression. Caritas Ukraine these days doing everything possible and even sometimes impossible to assist and support people who suffered because of war. But the situation is extremely difficult and unpredictable. We appreciate to all the people around the world who support us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful to have those personal touches as we think about this conflict. So now we move on to our panel, the first member of which is Adriana Marder, the coordinator of the Home Care Services Program in Romania. Please, Adriana, unmute yourself.
Hello. I am honored to be here with you today. And if somebody can to make me co-host, because I want to share some photo with you during my speech. Okay. Thank you. I am a social worker. This profession, in fact, it's a mission for me. It's a challenge all the time, but I feel predictably in these days. I meet women, mothers and grandmothers who gathered their lives in a suitcase, and with the children they flee the war. The tragic situation facing the Ukraine people has triggered a general state of insecurity, fear and anxiety. Unfortunately, innocent people shed many tears and suffer the dramatic consequences. They leave behind everything, relatives, friends, and the whole life they have enjoyed so far, heading to the other destinations. I will try to share, let's see, some photo from the center, the transit center that we have here in at the border with Siret. It's okay? Did you see? Okay, good, good. So in as a Caritas Iași, we have three places where we offer support, but the near place center, it's in Siret, near the border at 3 kilometers, where we have there a space. It's a space of the Catholic Church in that place, where they have a place where you can stay to sleep and eat something, a warmer place and a shower, and a lot of people that want to help them. Empathy, solidarity, support, emotions, tears, concrete gestures of help at the Caritas Transit Center in Siret from the Romanian Catholic Parish Birth of the Blessed Virgin Mary. From the beginning of the tragedy in Ukraine, we have come to aid of the refugees from the Siret border, people who are living the drama of war and separation. We are daily parkers of the despairs of mothers, children, the elderly, who have been forced to leave their birthplace, leaving behind loved ones and their whole lives. At the reception center, the transit center, they meet specialists from our association, volunteers, people with a big heart who provide them with accommodation, hot meals, information, and financial support where it's need to purchase tickets that take them to the following destination. Offer them advice and everything you need, their need to stay at the center. The drama of a nation blurs borders, and the solidarity and support of all the good people who have joined us allives the suffering of those fleeing war. It is painful. While I was present at the center of Siret, I meet faces torn by pain, women and children with tears in their eyes. When they enter in the center, they are presented by a great weight that seems too much for each of them. it is not the luggage that it's hard to carry, but the pain that they feel in their soul, the fact that they have to leave behind their husbands, their fathers, their grandparents, their friends, their whole life. In this center, last week, I met a mother with 2 children who drove for 5 days. In the last few days, they only had bread with mold to eat. When they entered the center, they were crying. After 10 minutes, when they gave light, children began to smile and to play. In that moment, I saw that the mother, and I feel that the mother reborn. The next day, they had the opportunity to meet again with their parents, the grandparents for the children. When they have the support to come at the center. Another impressive image was when the grandfather was set on the bed, and his 3-year-old his girl was also sitting next him and holding hands. It was a great image to see. This mother fled the war with her 2 children and his parents. 2 hours after he left his town, she found out that her house has been bombed. He's a medic, a neurosurgeon. This weekend, I was in Siret, and I meet 4 teenagers accompanied by their grandmother. Their parents died in a bombing raid. They came us to stay for a few hours until they will find a transport to go to Bucharest, from where they took a plane to Italy. I meet sad faces. Only they know what is in their soul now. Those sad faces lit up after 20 minutes. We approached them and offered them hot food. They were hungry. For these teenagers, a hot meal made them smile. And the hot meal, it's something just simple, but for them, it was a lot. These are something that I want to share with you. For me, it was a few days with emotional. I don't know the words in this time. They are too poor to can explain what is for these women that care their children, and just with a bag with some clothes. These are some images in this almost 3 weeks that a lot of people come here and transit from Ukraine to another destination, and they stay for a few hours or a few days in Siret, in our center. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. Thanks for the pictures. It really makes it real for us. And thank you for allowing yourself to be emotional as you tell us this story. I can feel your pain, and that's really important for us to be together in our hearts. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to Poland, where we will hear from Dominika Czeslowska, the head of communications. Sorry if I
It's okay.
killed your name.
It's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you so much for inviting, and I thank you also for the voice, and thanks to all of the speakers before. I feel very similar emotions to Adriana spending 2 weeks on the border, and also I thought that speaking about women and solidarity, it just has to be done with the pictures of those women that I've seen on the border. So I will also share my screen and show you what I've seen in here. And yeah, and I just want to share some stories from a very strong women, a very strong ladies fighting for freedom, and also being very sensitive for what is happening around us. First of all, I would like to introduce a few pictures from Women's Day that we've celebrated, and it was in this context of women that was very strong for us, because we felt that this day is coming. We know that for both Ukraine and Poland, this celebration is quite important. So we really wanted to celebrate it in this extremely difficult conditions with these women. So we prepared a slogan telling in Ukrainian language that you are important and exceptional for us. And that was very beautiful to see those women crying and being really touched about this solidarity. So those flowers that were given and the time that we were spending together was amazing for, I think, both of the sides, both of the ladies, that our friends from Ukraine, and both of us who were supporting this process and who were just spending time with them. So that was amazing. At the end, my picture was also an appeal to all of those ladies who are wherever in Poland or not only in Poland, just to show that this year Women's Day is a day of solidarity, and whoever see any Ukrainian woman somewhere around, or any woman that needs to be supported around, this is the day when we should really remember about them, because those husbands, those fathers or sons, they maybe stayed in Ukraine fighting for the freedom. So we are here in Poland, and yeah, we just have to support each other and also support them, because they feel quite lonely probably. And then faces of women on the border are for me also faces of volunteers who are there, amazing women. These are women from Caritas who are cooking soups every day and coming there just to give it to others. They were smiling, they were very cheerful and strong in these hard conditions, because the situation is hard for everyone. But coming to them and having a soup, it's not only a soup, but it's also the smile, it's also the energy, and it's also something warm that comes from their heart and from their face and from everything that they do. You just see it on the picture. So the atmosphere in there, I'd say it's not depressing at all. It is very heartwarming, and it is very upbuilding for everyone who comes to those tents. This is our volunteer Magda, who was especially important for all of us because she was coordinating our tent. She speaks Ukrainian, Russian, also Polish and English. And she was a great support from the morning to the night, and even during the nights for every ladies. We also found sisters that were coming to us to help from all over the Poland. But I would say not only from Poland, because we had volunteers and women coming from America or many other countries. The support goes from the countries, not only from the Europe and Poland, but also from all over the world, and we felt it very strongly. And yes, these are just faces of volunteers that I met, and they were working there. And also faces from Ukrainian women, which was surprising for me. I saw them very strong and very active, and very, very much very strong also to care about their children, because they usually come with children, very strong and believing that this will finish. And whenever we asked what is your hope or what do you think will come during next days, just to understand how they feel, I felt that they have a lot of hope inside their hearts. So so it was incredible to see how strong they are and to work with them. These are amazing faces for me. Also those children, small ladies that were coming to us and that we saw them. Yeah, a lot of solidarity. This is also First Lady, because I saw a lot of activity, both from volunteers, but also from Caritas community, also from the governmental side. This is our Polish First Lady, and the next picture is the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Belarus coming to us. So there was a lot of support from many different structures and many different institutions, government, organizations, and also among Caritas, which was really, in these difficult times, supportive. And I think that this is what should happen in this humanitarian crisis, that whatever is not understandable for us, we can face these problems with our solidarity and with helping. And also, I would mention quite briefly the sentence that Tatiana from Caritas Ukraine said at one of the conferences, which is very valuable for me. She also mentioned that what is hope for them is giving help. And I see that also here on the border. Our hope is that we help each other and we are together. Yeah. These are incredible ladies that were cooking 80 hours a day for the first week soups on the train station in Przemyśl. This became kind of hub or a spot for Ukrainian people coming from Lviv mostly. And the stories that they shared were also incredible, because first of all, they invited families to come to that kitchen and work with them. Second of all, between cooking meals, they were supporting Ukrainian ladies coming with children, because they were so exhausted that they couldn't hold children on their hands. It's like themselves, and they were supporting whenever they stopped cooking, they were just going and spending time with them. And at the end, a very incredible moment for me when we decided just to go to the room for mother and children also in the train station. We opened this room because we saw that those ladies coming with children, they need some kind of intimacy and a moment just to be with the child, to feed, to give food to the child, and just to take care, to sleep for a moment. So we opened the room, and I found a very young lady sitting there next to me, and she really didn't want to speak with me at the beginning. And I felt that something on psychological level is very strong and difficult for her. And then we were just singing one song and also playing on the guitar. And after this song, she just said, "Thank you." I saw tears in her eyes and we hugged each other. And at that moment, I understood that first of all, for youth people, for youth ladies, it is also very important that we remember about them, because for them, it's really, for us, it's not understandable what is happening around, and for them even more. And we should care about those people who are young and who should be supported at this time. And also at this moment, I would point out that psychological help is also very much needed, both for those who are coming to us and both for our volunteers who really face strong stories every day and night. And the last but not least picture is the picture of hands of older lady. This is also the group that should be cared, because some of the people coming are just not able to travel themselves. Also, this is sometimes the first travel in their lives, and they really need a strong support from our side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dominika. Again, the pictures are so heartwarming. And thanks especially for bringing up the role of the volunteers, which are so helpful in all of our crises and all of our work around the world, from parishes and from other places with their families. It's really hopeful that so many people want to be involved. Thank you so much. Before we go to our next speaker, we are going to have another video. Thank you again, lovely. It was a great idea to follow one person's journey. Okay, next we move on to Father Vyacheslav Granovich, the Executive Director of Caritas Spes in Ukraine. Father?
Hello. Thank you for this invitation. I'm so happy to be with you at this webinar. I know that most of you are women, and this month, March, and especially these days, are close to you, to women. And I would like, first of all, tell you thank you for everything that you are doing for us, for our people, especially for women, because it's something very important. Because today our humans, Ukrainians, are in tears. But thank you for this, your support and closeness with us. During these 20 days of war, simple houses of families, schools, kindergartens, and even children's hospitals and maternity hospitals were bombed. Also, thanks to correspondents, journalists, footage of the maternity hospital bombing in Mariupol has spread around the world. Photos of wounded pregnant women being evacuated from the destroyed maternity hospital have appeared in the world press. Also, I am sure that most of us have been seeing the faces of mothers hugging their children while waiting to cross the border. They don't follow a beautiful life, but into the unknown, flying from the fire and death. And we are very grateful for your help and supporting. The war cripples hundreds of thousands of destinies, alive and unborn. It changes the life not only of the generation that found it, but become a funnel in the gain pool of the people for many decades. How many lost specialists, how many unborn children, how many physically destroyed Ukrainians? Only according to official data today, about 4,000 civilians died, approx 2 million internally displaced persons, and 2.5 million who crossed the border as refugees. But we understand that during the war, the official statistics are very small because it counts only legal recorded cases. From the first days of the war, Caritas Spes Ukraine has focused its efforts on rescuing children, women, and vulnerable elders. The topic of today's meeting is primarily for immigrant women, but it touches more deeply on the war in general and the tragedy of woman as a mother who loses a child, as a woman who lets her husband protect her people, as a sister and daughters, or a grandmother who does not know or see once again the one you love so much. Although a woman's vocation is primary peace and the gift of life, women in war become warriors who defend their country without weapons. I saw an interesting fact that The first female officer in Europe was a Ukrainian, Olena Stepova, 1892-1963, who fought in the First World War, commanded a women's detachment of Ukrainian siege riflemen at the front. A face of women in war are different. In the Ukrainian language, we have the expression "a woman in hope," so-called pregnant woman. This is a very strong image of how hope overcome fear, uncertainty, and even death. Today, I see women becoming builders of peace on all fronts. These are both those who serve in the armed forces or in the National Guard, and doctors and nurses. This is everything from leaders of organizations and movements of volunteers who meet refugees at the station of different countries. These are those who settle, those who feed, coordinate, those who pray in monasteries or wage information warfare. Now a woman with hope, in hope, can be called anyone who is waiting for the end of the terrible war, waiting to meet with their relatives, who find refuge in a foreign country, to always return home with thoughts. Now each of us is in hope. Everyone in his place is a builder of peace. Finally, I would like to express gratitude once again for the solidarity of the countries that have such strong support for Ukraine. Every one of you who condemns war, every one who reaches out to a refuge becomes such a builder of peace. Thank you so much that you are close to us. Thank you so much, and for rebuilding of this human dignity together.
Thank you so much, Father, for taking time from your incredibly busy schedule to be with us and to give us these insights from inside the conflict. You can be assured that we are with you and that we together are women of hope, hoping that Ukraine will come back to its real life. Thank you so much.
God bless. Thank you.
Wonderful. All of that has been very moving and touching for me, as I'm sure it has been for you. Pope Francis has reminded us, while we are concerned about what's happening in Ukraine and Eastern Europe, to not forget the many other conflicts being experienced in our world. And so our next couple of speakers will talk about the forces of women working with migrants in other difficult situations. First, we have Sheba Mary Durazio, sorry again, the communications manager of Caritas Bangladesh. She spoke with us last year as well, but will give us an update on what's happening with the Rohingya refugees. Sheba?
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited to be a part of this great event. And I thank CI for giving me the opportunity to share the experience of Caritas Bangladesh about working with the Rohingya community. About 1 million Rohingya people fled from Myanmar in 2017, and Caritas Bangladesh started its intervention immediately. So as of March 15, the UNHCR says that there are currently nearly 1 million Rohingya people in the camp, and around 52% are women of them. So when they first arrived in August 2017, the women, they were traumatized from the conflict and living in the refugee camp, and scarcity of resources, population boom, and prevalence of gender-based violence. And now, if we compare to the first few months, now there mental and physical, cognitive, social, and emotional improvement of the Rohingya women has been drastic. The awareness of their own rights and dignity in the community has increased. Their life skills and vocational skills have increased. They are now engaging in themselves in income generating activities with the humanitarian workers, eventually being able to contribute for the well-being of their own community. Their roles as mothers, sisters, and wives in the family has been truly recognized by the community, and they are now better able to take care of others, especially the children and adolescent girls. Overall, now they hope for a better future on their return to their homeland as empowered individuals. Caritas Bangladesh is extending support to the women and adolescents through multi-purpose Women and Girls Center. We have 5 centers, and Caritas Bangladesh is also supporting for multi-purpose Children and Adolescent Center. Now, I would like to share some pictures of the camp activities with you. So here you can see the Rohingya women. They are active now, and they are taking part also in the physical labor, as same as the men are doing through Cash for Work. Here we see a picture of a women entrepreneur, and she's a successful participant of a Caritas response program. The women are also involved in shelter building and repairing works. Women laborers and staff are busy in road repairing activities. They are also doing site improvement works. Here, health screening and checkup program for and by the women are seen in the picture. A staff member is seen conducting awareness session in the community. The women Rohingyas are building structures with items which were distributed by Caritas Bangladesh. A staff member, a women staff, is seen visiting women and children to collect data about their living conditions.
Sheba, I think you need to forward your slides. Sometimes that's hard to do. Maybe if you just click on the number 5 slide on the left. There we go. Now you're moving it.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Number 5, yeah. Okay, so I already have gone through this. Some pictures of health checkup by and for the program, a picture of conducting awareness session and building structure. Women are working for building structures with items distributed by Caritas. At the right, you can see women staff is visiting women and children to collect data about their living condition. The women are also involved in making handicrafts. They are getting a life skill training from the Multipurpose Women and Girls Center. The children, adolescent girls are also taking part in the same activities, and they also observe the International Women's Day in the camp. So now I would like to play a video of a colleague who is directly working with the Rohingya women. She is working in the camp. She is Snigdha. Kindly let me know if you can't face any problem.
We're not seeing it yet. You may need to put your PowerPoint presentation down to show your video. We have the video, but not the audio.
Sorry, Jean, isn't
We
the
can't
video
hear it.
playing?
We can see the video, but we can't hear it.
Okay, then I should stop here and I will share the video with you, and that's all. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Perhaps it could be posted by Caritas
If
Internationalis somewhere.
Stephanie, is it possible to share?
Yes, we are going to share.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sheba, if you just stop sharing your screen, then it'll let me share mine. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Situation like mass migration, we are talking about the most vulnerable individuals, women. It hasn't been, and for some unknown reason, it hasn't been realized in various parts of the world that women can play a vital role in any emergency situation, except for these recent years. Women have an inbuilt abundance of compassion, care, and love. To be more specific, if we go with the context or with the theme, how significantly women are being an instrument of hope, we need to look up to the vulnerable groups of women in migration setups. Apart from the social and traditional bias and stigma that women face in their everyday life, they are wonderfully being leader or doing so many things in their life. And in migration setups, women become more vulnerable, and to a greater sense, they become more riskful, and that is where they look up to the other women who come to them as aid and for their protection. And when we work in the Rohingya context, we go through these kind of risks more often. When we used to work, we work with them. we need to be more careful and cautious about their feelings and about their need. It is a two-way approach actually. Women out of their loving and caring nature come forward in help of other vulnerable individuals, which in generally grows hope and courage to the person standing in front of them, that the so-called downtrodden women are handling so many tough situations, so many life-saving situations. So that's a two-way approach. And women there are so many areas that where only women can contribute and women can play some roles, not men. So it's true, and it's very well said that women are worthily capable of arising hope and courage in individuals that who are in need of hope and courage.
Thank you so much, Sheba, for sharing that update. It's wonderful to hear how the women are being empowered to again take control of their lives and to help each other. So much. Thanks so much. And now we move to Kat Kelly. Kat is the Senior Director of Migration and Refugee Resettlement Services at Catholic Charities USA. And Kat, we look forward to hearing about what's happening in that country.
Hi, Jean. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us and being part of this conversation today. I'm going to share a little bit about some of our work in response to the crisis at the US-Mexico border. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. So Catholic Charities USA has 5 member agencies. We have 167 member agencies total across the United States and US territories, 5 of whom are service providers at the US-Mexico border. So responding to the asylum seekers who are entering the US-Mexico border, trying to seek asylum in the United States. The conditions on the US-Mexico border are quite rough right now. Folks are trying to get into the US, folks are trying to seek asylum, folks are being stopped at the US. They're often held in detention for a long time at the US-Mexico border. And that detention, it can be very, very traumatic. Often folks aren't given enough food, they're not given enough water. Children are sometimes separated temporarily from their parents and these sorts of things. When folks are released from detention, they are supposed to go forward and find their way into the interior of the United States where they'll be connected with family or friends. So often folks will be coming from conditions such as these. As you can see, this is an incredibly overcrowded detention cell at the US-Mexico border. And they are sent into the interior of the United States to find their own way. And typically what ends up happening is that they connect with a family member and then they're able to kind of start their life as they make their asylum case in the United States. Our respite centers are kind of the step in between when folks leave detention and when folks go into the interior. So folks are given food, they're given access to a shower, they're given access to clothing, and they're also treated with dignity, often for the first time in the course of their journey to cross the US border. We see many, many, many different nationalities at the US border, including Ukrainians, including folks from Afghanistan, folks from the Northern Triangle, Central American countries, folks from Africa, folks from Asia. So we often say we're seeing the whole world, a global population at the southern border. And all of those folks are going through this detention process. And then when they're released, they're kind of set up for another step, unfortunately, in trauma exposure. And that is through having very, very little access to resources in the course of their asylum case. In 2021, we had 1.6 million encounters at the US-Mexico border. And many of those folks, once they were released, whether that was back into Mexico or into the United States, encountered nonprofit folks who are working on supporting them in their journey. When COVID-19 started, as it did for everyone on this call, everyone in the world, our whole ability to serve folks changed. We were not able to offer the same resources that we offered at our respite shelters because folks couldn't go in anymore. Our respite centers depend very, very heavily on volunteers, and they weren't able to continue engaging volunteers during lockdown and during the large efforts to mitigate the spread of the pandemic. Catholic Charities USA worked with many, over 101 congregations of women religious, to respond to this extreme shortage of volunteers that made it so that we could not respond to refugees in a trauma-informed way. And that was by not being able to access respite centers after following these really brutal conditions in ICE detention. And so through partnership with these 101 congregations of women religious, Catholic Charities USA was able to engage over 250 women religious to provide services on the US-Mexico border during COVID. Most of these women were elders, and so were prioritized in the initial phases of the COVID vaccine in the United States. And so they said, yes, we will come, we will volunteer, we will help to operate the respite centers. And so for a time, and still now, but for a time in the United States, the majority of the folks who were coming into the United States who were being served in respite centers were being served by volunteer sisters, who were the reason we were able to keep our humanitarian capacity at the US border. So the organizing efforts of these women, the willingness of these women to put themselves at great risk during the height of a global pandemic made it so that we were able to continue to provide humanitarian support to asylum seekers, to offer them some dignity. Folks saw in the picture the conditions that folks are coming out of in ICE detention, and then their first encounter is with women religious whose priority is to continue to empower the concept of dignity within the person, who understands what this trauma does to families, does to children, does to other women, does to men, and whose first encounter with these folks is based on you as a human person. We want you here, we want you safe, we want you fed. Welcome. You know, often the first time folks will hear bienvenido or welcome is from one of these sisters who deployed during a very, very dangerous time to deploy. The sisters do everything in these centers to help support. They'll get folks enrolled. Here you can see a picture of a mom and a daughter being enrolled. So they'll be connected with support to their family members in the interior. Often folks don't even know where they are on the US border. They thought they were headed to California, but by the time they're released in Laredo, Texas. They don't know where they are. So often the sisters will show them on a map, you're right here. And you're headed to New Jersey, way over here, you know, helping folks to kind of conceptualize where they are and how they're going to get to their new homes. We have had within this group of, you know, over 200 sisters, we've had a wide variety of skill sets. We've had a wide variety of professional representation. You know, sisters who are doctors, sisters who are social workers, folks like that, sisters who can provide very specific interventions and supports, and who then go in and serve a meal and fold some clothes. So I really can't emphasize the fact that this organizing within women religious, within these communities of women religious, was a historical feat. It truly was a historical feat. And it made it so that we were able to continue our call to welcome the stranger in the United States in a way that never would have been possible without the leadership and participation of these women. So thank you, Jean.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kat. Thanks so much for letting us know the contribution of religious women to this crisis. And I'm sure it was mentioned also in Poland, everywhere they are joining Caritas, and some working for Caritas to make things better and to promote human dignity. So thanks for reminding us of that. I'm going to turn it back to Moira to introduce our next speaker.
Yes, thank you very much, Jean. I'm really grateful because the conclusion of this webinar, we have really a special guest, let me say, allow me to say that. who has joined us. A special thanks to Father Fabio Baggio, Under Secretary of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, Migrants and Refugee section, for joining us today to give a word on conclusion of this webinar on the, let me say, female face of migration, on the role of women in accompanying and supporting, welcoming migrants despite the difficulties, the challenges that they have. You have a specific and a special perspective from your side, Father Fabio, and we are really grateful for your presence today. The floor is yours with our deeply thanks.
Thank you, Moira. And thank you for giving me the chance also to speak to all the participants of this webinar, just for the sake of interpretation and to give a break to those who have been working a lot. I will just switch to Spanish. So on that, to facilitate even the work of others who can understand Spanish. Es un gusto y un placer de poder hablarle y en este momento concluir también el trabajo que se ha realizado durante esta hora de testimonios que se han compartido a lo largo del mundo y la experiencia de mujeres que están trabajando, por una parte, misionando, que están entregando sus vidas para migrantes y refugiados en el mundo, y por otra parte, mujeres que están viajando, caminantes, migrantes y refugiadas. Quiero decir, bueno, que toda la experiencia que fueron compartidas simplemente son un ejemplo de las miles, de las cientos de miles de mujeres que se están entregando. Entre ellas, obviamente, ya fueron recordadas las religiosas, que están presentes en muchas de las fronteras y en muchos de los lugares, ahí donde se sirven a migrantes refugiados. Pero con ellas muchas otras mujeres laicas que simplemente desde su fe, desde su experiencia de vida, de fe, están entregando parte de su tiempo, están entregando sus capacidades, sus competencias al servicio de mucha gente que está de paso. Más que una conclusión, es un agradecimiento, y ese agradecimiento se viene en nombre del Santo Padre. Al comienzo de esta sesión fue recordada como el Santo Padre mismo estuvo agradeciendo a las mujeres que adentro de la Iglesia desarrollan un rol especial y extraordinario, sobre todo en el mundo de la cultura del cuidado, por una parte, y por la otra parte también para darnos una perspectiva distinta y un entendimiento distinto de las cosas. Frente a todos los conflictos a los cuales estamos asistiendo, a las crisis humanitarias que estamos teniendo, la perspectiva femenina, la perspectiva de las mujeres es súper necesaria para tener un enfoque mucho más balanceado, más equilibrado también de las cuestiones que se están debatiendo. Yo creo, y lo digo por experiencia personal, me he encontrado trabajando en parroquias y misiones por muchos años en América Latina y en Asia, y mis compañeras de viaje eran sobre todo mujeres, que he encontrado por una parte y por otra entregando su vida y su tiempo. Además de darle su tiempo a la familia, también encontrando el tiempo de entregarse al servicio de los demás, de los más pobres y particularmente de los migrantes y de los refugiados. Esta presencia se ha constituido para mí una escuela de aprendizaje de perspectiva distinta. Y creo que esto nos hace falta también en este momento particular, de ponernos con humildad, nosotros varones, en muchas oportunidades también, a la escucha de perspectiva distinta y entender que hay maneras distintas de interpretar el mundo y de ver las cosas. La segunda es también aprender el cuidado. Yo estuve mirando y escuchando las voces, muchas veces rotas también en los testimonios que se daban por la empatía que se estaba generando en el relatar sobre el trabajo que está realizando. La emoción en presentar las fotos y los pequeños videos que se han presentado. Y esto para decir que muchas veces lo que nos hace falta también es esta empatía que el Santo Padre sigue señalando como necesaria en nuestro trabajo de servicio. No es posible servir de una perspectiva aséptica. No es posible servir sin tener empatía, sin ponerse en los zapatos de los otros y de las otras. No es posible servir sin entrar en el drama, en la historia del otro y de la otra que queremos servir. Y esto nos dice mucho de la cultura del encuentro, a la cual el Santo Padre sigue llamándonos en todo momento, para entender que cada vez que tenemos esta capacidad de encuentro, esta capacidad de conocer, esta capacidad de encontrar, esta capacidad de reconocer al hermano y a la hermana presente en toda persona necesitada, estamos creciendo nosotros en humanidad. Y no es tanto lo que estamos dando a los demás, sino lo que estamos recibiendo en este servicio particular. Y en este caso también, sirviendo también a muchas mujeres que hacen parte de estos dramas. ¿Cuántas son las mujeres? Los datos hablan del 50%, pero en las recientes crisis, lamentablemente, la presencia femenina se está haciendo mucho más evidente, la última de la crisis ucraniana. Y estamos viendo cómo niños, mujeres, personas que pueden presentarse con una vulnerabilidad particular están al centro de nuestro cuidado. Por también esta experiencia particular es una experiencia de leer situaciones y dramas con ojos de mujer. Y entenderlo también que en el corazón, que paterno y materno de Dios, están los sentimientos de los unos y de las otras. Y entender que en esta integración de sentimientos, en este balance también de sentimiento, en este equilibrio de mirada, nosotros vamos a descubrir la manera justa de actuar. Y bueno, y como Santo Padre sigue repitiendo también, brindando posibilidades particulares a las mujeres también de tener cargos de responsabilidad adentro de nuestras instituciones. Yo creo que el camino ya se ha abierto en ese sentido y estamos caminando hacia ello. Estamos tratando de aprender también de nuestros errores muchas veces y hacer que lo que nosotros estamos proponiendo a gran voz, que es la justicia, que es un camino en conjunto, que es complementario e integrador, también sea vivo y presente en nuestra estructura eclesial. Así que termino diciéndole, como suele hacer el Santo Padre, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias por lo que están haciendo. No sé si Moira tuvo la oportunidad de compartirle que desde la sección Migrante Refugiado hemos tratado de armar un grupo de trabajo ya con las grandes organizaciones católicas para responder a esta crisis, la crisis ucraniana. Pero hay algo importante que sí le quiero decir en ese sentido, que hay un elemento que muchas veces se olvida al mirar la crisis nueva que está saliendo. No queremos olvidarnos y no nos vamos a olvidar de las otras crisis. Ningún refugiado, ningún solicitante de asilo, ningún desplazado es más importante que el otro. Y ningún continente es más importante que el otro. Y adentro de la crisis, imagino que ustedes también conmigo y con nuestra sección lo vamos a ir repitiendo, para que nunca se olvide que hay otra persona en el mundo que sigue sufriendo. Fueron presentadas a lo largo de los testimonios muchas de las situaciones a las cuales me estoy refiriendo y hay muchas más que están un poquito más desconocidas. Repito, nadie, ningún refugiado, ningún migrante es más importante que el otro o que la otra. Y en esto lo vamos a seguir repitiendo para que no nos olvidemos también de aquellos que siguen sufriendo en sus dramas. Muchas gracias, les felicito. Enhorabuena. Este trabajo ha sido maravilloso y esto compartir y espero también, ya que fue grabado, también que otros tengan la posibilidad de verlo y aprender de los distintos testimonios. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Father Fabio. Thank you also for having highlighted in the end of your intervention the importance to not forget the other crisis, the other refugees, despite the priority and the importance that the Ukrainian crisis has having in this particular moment. Thank you very much from all of us and from Caritas. We will continue to have opportunities to work together and to work together in different crises and to work together to advocate for the poor, for migrants and for their needs. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jean, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Father Fabio, for doing the work that you do at the dicastery on behalf of migrants and refugees. We thank you so much. Well, we've come to the end of our event. I keep saying in the chat box that people have found it moving. And that's certainly how I would summarize the experience for me. It was a very powerful event. And I thank you all for participating with us. But before we leave, we would just want to give it right back to Moira just to remind us about next week's webinar.
Thank you, Jean. First of all, thank you to you for moderating this session, for moderating this webinar. Jean is a member of our Women's Committee for Equality, Participation and Leadership at Caritas Internationalis. So by thanking her, I thank all the committee for the contribution and for the preparatory work that has been done up till today. We look forward to being with you again next Tuesday, 22nd of March, on the World Water Day for a webinar on women as builders of solidarity, women caring for the poor and caring for our common home. Thank you very much and see you next Tuesday.